Welcome everybody, Jason here with Team Swamp Stomp. I want to introduce you to somebody really special. This is Bill Russell, and he is my right-hand man in a lot of my crazy schemes and plans. We've gotten into a lot of trouble together, doing a lot of fun things. So Bill plays a very important role here at Team Swamp Stomp, and well, he plays a lot of important roles, but one of those is gear maintenance. When you're talking about keeping up with 20 plus work guns, maybe closer to 30 with counting the bird hunting equipment and everything. That is a huge job. And so I thought today you guys might be interested in some of the behind the scenes of what happens whenever we show up with a loaded gun box at the end of the night after a successful hog hunt. What happens kind of after the hunt is over? And that's where Bill comes in. He's up until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, sometimes taking care of all this gear while the guides go take care of the pigs and get the clients on their way. So we're going to move into a little of the stuff here, just kind of starting off with, you know, Bill, like whenever we bring the gun box to you, what's your protocol each night when you get the gear in?
Well, as soon as the gear comes in the boxes, typically we'll have anytime 4 or 5 weapons that are out, as well as our scanners. And so the first thing I do is bring the guns inside, drop the mags out of them, and then unload the guns, make sure the chambers are empty and all that. The next thing I do is actually pull the batteries out of our thermal scopes.
Which that battery station looks like an alien spaceship when it's
It really
does.
It's we're able to charge probably 20 different types, well, at least 6 different types of batteries, and anywhere up to 20 to 25 batteries at any given time. And so once I get the batteries on the charger, then the next thing I do is try to wipe down the guns and look for any superficial problems that might have been associated with the hunt or with the weapons or anything like that. I'll visit with the guides, and then if the guns have been working mechanically A-OK, then that's kind of where I stop at. I'll lay the guns out on this picnic table here, and if we have changes in the humidity and things like that, I'll actually put on 5 or 6 fans around the guns and kind of air dry them before I put them up in the safe in the following morning.
With these guns that we're taking out, you know, almost every day, sometimes multiple sets of guns, what's some of the areas where you find wear or things that have to be changed from time to time?
Probably the most common thing that we see is the charging handle. Of course, I've checked this weapon already and it's unloaded, but we see that oftentimes at the end of the charging handle there's a hairline crack that prevents the charging handle from sliding forward or chambering a shell. What we're seeing with the suppressors is that this makes the guns dirtier. With this type of system these AR platforms are using, all the carbon buildup is coming back into the chamber itself, and so what we're seeing is the bolt carrier group and anything associated with that gets extremely dirty. Anything with the magazines, anything that is around the lower part of the gun, it's going to accumulate crud, basically carbon buildup from the firing of the weapons and everything.
Awesome. So I think we can probably move into sort of your next step in this process whenever the guns are ready to be broken down and deep cleaned. So let's go over to your system here. I want you to kind of show everybody how you do that, and we'll move over there.
Okay, sounds good. All right. This is a spreadsheet, basically a whiteboard in which I keep up with all the weapons that we have in our rotation, and then try to keep up with how many times the guns are actually fired, and as well as how many shots have been fired. These are my 7.62 by 39. These are one of our primary caliber that we use. These are the red or the pink colored. Keep up with all of those, the dates that they were last cleaned, the times they've actually been out on the hunts, and then we also assume that, and it's pretty close, that every time we go on a hunt, we're going to shoot a certain number of rounds, usually about 10 rounds or so. And then these on the left-hand side, these white, these are the 6.8 SPC, which is the second caliber that we have primarily using in our rotation. We also have a few of the 223 or the 5.56, which are the yellow tags, and then we have one 308 Winchester that we also have silencer as well thermal scope on it. So depending on the group that we have and the needs, we have guns that will actually take care of left-handed shooters, right-handed shooters, shooters that are small in stature. So we have basically some full-length carbines, the 16-inch barrels. We actually have some that are AR pistols, and then some that are short barrel rifles. But what we do, based on what I've been reading on the internet and everything, that once a gun has shot between roughly 300 times with a silencer, it probably needs to be, thoroughly cleaned. The pink or the red guns are 7.62 by 39s. Our blue is a 308 Winchester. We have several of our 6.8 SPCs that are white, and then a few 5.56 as well in yellow. And what we've done on each one of those, we list which truss the gun is in. We list which type of scope is on there, but we also list the color of the gun so that at any given time, a hunter that is hunting with, say, one of the 7.62s, one hunter may have the NRA blue, another one may have sunflower yellow, another one may have a red, firehouse red or something like that. So each time the weapon is passed out to our hunters from the gun box, we are able to make sure that that hunter receives the weapon that he is adjusted his eyesight with, as well as we give them time on the range to shoot if they want to, and that gives them an idea about the trigger pull and the mechanics of the gun. So whenever we get ready to go out on a hunt, if, for instance, I have Jason and his dad Jay are two of our primary guides, we try to send the same caliber out with each guide so that it's not a mix-up in ammunition or anything like that. So for instance, if Jason is going out with 3 hunters, I can actually take and assign weapons to Jason, and then if Jay has a group of larger hunters in which we have no more 6.8 guns available, I'll actually pull off and we'll assign weapons to Jay based on a left-handed shooter. We have a shooter here that has an AR pistol that's much shorter, so if we have a youth or someone of slight build, then we can assign them a smaller gun. And then we have carbines that we can assign to them. So each time a hunter's group goes out, we kind of cater the weapons that go to each of the hunter group. This is one of our weapons that's been out 21 times, and we try to bring our guns in after they've been on about 20 hunts to do a full cleaning on those. Of course, the first thing you do is check the chamber, and we always look into the chamber. We've had instances before where, especially if the chamber is dirty, that actually a shell may be lodged in there, but we'll actually physically look inside the chamber and make sure that everything is clear. The next thing I do, even before I start taking the gun apart, I've made it a habit of checking to make sure our pistol grip is tight. So I take that, tighten it, and then one of the things, we don't actually stake the castle nuts on these guns, so I also take my wrench and make sure that it is tight. These are two common areas in which we actually see the furniture on the gun actually loosening and everything. So actually before the process begins and the cleaning, I just want to make sure that the parts that are attached to the lower are in really good shape. In the field cleaning, I actually take the silencers off. We have primarily Yankee Hill machine resonator 2s on most of our guns, and so they're quick release ratchet systems, and so I will take the safety off, the silencer off, and just set it to the side. The next thing I like to do is actually take the forearm off. I keep a baggie full of all the Allen wrenches that I'm going to be using in the cleaning process. That way it just makes it kind of easy to instead of digging through all the other tools I have to actually be able to find the ones I need. So I loosen the forearms, screws. This one actually has set screws on there that I've already loosened prior to starting this cleaning operation, and then the forearm just slides off. This forearm, of course, with us shooting the silencers and everything, they're going to accumulate carbon buildup in here. And one of the things I'll do is actually run a solvent soap patch through there, clean it off, and just makes it easier and cleaner to have the forearm so it doesn't accumulate moisture when we're out hunting at night and everything. Really, the next thing I do is try to take the upper and the lower, and depending on how old the gun is, how much use it's, the pin here at the rear is the first one that I'll open, and this is one of our older guns, so I can do most of this with my fingers. And then once I do that lower, I take this pin here, and if I can't get it, I'll take my brass point punch and just gently tap on it. And once I get it started and everything, generally it'll pull on out. And at this point, I'll have the lower separated from my upper. The next thing I commonly do is take out the boat carrier group. Boat carrier group can be accessed by pulling on the charging handle, and as you pull out on the charging handle, the boat carrier group will come out. The charging handle slides in a groove down here, and there's a half moon cutout in the receiver in which these tabs right here actually sit down into there. And we'll discuss that whenever we get into the reassembly part of it. But basically, the charging handle will slide, sit down in here after it's been cleaned. This boat needs to be pulled all the way forward, and then it will just slide right in and snap into place. So once I pull the boat carrier group out, I'll set it aside, and then I'll also set the charging handle aside. And I prefer to next take the boat apart, and so there's a retaining pin that's a little cotter pin. This cotter pin also many times shows wear and everything, and this one, for instance, has a little burr associated with the firing action of the gun, and I can take a little small file and round any burr off of the retention pin. Of course, I have many of these retention pins. Once they get to a point where they need to be replaced, we probably have a couple $1,000s worth of just various AR parts and everything. After this firing pin retention clip is removed, you can bump on the boat carrier group and the firing pin will come out. I usually inspect the firing pin just to make sure the tip of it hasn't shown any premature wearing. To date, after firing thousands and thousands of rounds, I think I've only had one firing pin that chipped on the end. The next thing to do is to rotate the boat, and rotating the boat all the way back, this little retention pin here can be pivoted, and once it's pivoted, it can either be taken out with your fingernail, or if it's too much carbon buildup or anything like that, just take a small flat screwdriver and pry it up. And then at that point, the boat actually slides out. This is a boat that's specifically for the 7.62 by 39. We have had one ejector break here, so since then I've been buying the enhanced ejectors and really haven't had issues since then. Once this has been assembled, like disassembled, the next thing I'll do is actually take my solvent and clean the boat and the boat carrier group. So once this is done, once the boat carrier group, I've taken a soft bristle toothbrush with solvent and cleaned off this to get excess carbon buildup on both the boat the boat carrier group and the charging handle, the next thing I'll do is actually put it in my ultrasonic cleaner.
Okay.
Once the boat carrier group and the charging handle come out of the ultrasonic cleaner, they're extremely dry. And so what I then do is take some light gun oil, actually place the gun oil on a rag and wipe the outside, the inside of the boat carrier group, same thing with the boat, and make sure that there's a thin coating of oil on these parts. To really get rid of the excess oil on these, the next thing I do is actually take these out, and with my air compressor I'll blow off any of the excess oil that may have accumulated in any of the ports or any of the small crevices of the boat carrier group. And then once I've done that, I'm ready to assemble it back into the upper after I've cleaned the upper with the brush and everything. So with the upper here, it's kind of a two-stage part that I do. I'll take the cleaning brush that is designed for a 30 caliber or the 6.8, depending on which one I'm cleaning. I'll actually dip the brush into the solvent and then run the solvent-laden brush through the bore, and I'll do this approximately 15 times or so until I feel like it's gotten rid of most of the excess carbon built up on there. Then the next thing I'll do is take one of these patches and actually put some solvent on the patch and run the patch through the bore several times until the patches get relatively clean. They don't have to be perfectly clean, but relatively clean like that is plenty good for what we're doing. Once I've run the solvent through this upper, I'll take it outside and blow off all the excess solvent that may have accumulated in any of the springs or any of the chamber lugs or anything like that. Once I've blown off all the solvent, then I'll take some of the gun oil that I have here. I'll put some gun oil on the patch and wipe down the inside of the chamber, outside of the gun, mainly just to give a light lubricant coating on any of the parts that potentially might rust or have any issues later on. Then I'll run the oil-laden patch through the bore, and as you can see, there's not much buildup on there. And then I can take the patch and clean off the inside of the chamber. What I found to be very, very useful are these wire brushes. The wire brush here, I just put a patch on there like this, and I can actually coat the inside of the chamber with oil. It's not going to be much oil, but it's just enough to clean off any residual carbon that may have built up on the inside of the chamber. At this point, once I've run the brush through there with oil, clean the chamber up, then I'll actually go outside, air compressor, blow off any of the excess oil. And at this point, I'm ready to reassemble the boat and the boat carrier group. The boat, depending on if it's left-handed or right-handed, this is a right-handed boat, so it will go into the chamber so that the extractor is on the right-hand side. And one way, the best way to know if you've got it assembled the right way is to take this cam pin that holds the boat into the boat carrier group and see if it'll fit into this hole. As you can see, this fits in the hole perfectly. If you've got the bolt in upside down in the boat carrier group, this pin will not actually chamber into that slot. So this way I know that The extractor is going to be on this side for a right-handed gun. So I take and slide the bolt back into the bolt carrier group. There's a little hole in there that you have to rotate to drop this cam pin in here. The cam pin has to basically be parallel with the bolt, and this can be tricky at times, but once you get it in there, then just rotate it 90 degrees. And the reason to rotate it 90 degrees is that there's a hole inside of this cam pin that the firing pin is actually going to slide through. So drop it into the bolt carrier group, rotate it that way so that it is now perpendicular 90 degrees to the bolt carrier group. And at this point, it's time to drop the firing pin in there. The firing pin actually is going to sit and basically be flush or to the back of this bolt carrier group. And then the only thing that's left to do is to put this Carter pin in. Basically, it's a bolt or firing pin retention, and it slides in this hole here. This is one of the most difficult things that can be to reassemble. These little prongs that many times are spread apart, and if they have too much gap in there, they won't seat very well into the bolt carrier group. So take the Carter pin and slide it in there. And many times this one doesn't want to go in there. Just take a small flat blade screwdriver, push against the base of that Carter pin, and just kind of twist it, and eventually it'll slide in. This retention pin needs to be below the body of the bolt carrier group. If it's sticking out at all, then it's going to cause issues with cycling of the gun, possibly not even going into the upper receiver. So make sure that pin is pushed in there, and once it's seated in there, then this is ready to be placed back into the upper. Okay, so pick up the upper that you've cleaned and everything, and then take this charging handle, and you'll find the half moon grooves in there, and once it sets in there, it's about 2 inches from the rear of the gun, and put it approximately halfway in. Take the bolt carrier group and set it down so that this little nozzle sits into the charging handle, and just slide it forward, and it must go all the way forward till it clicks. And once it clicks, then the bolt carrier group is correctly seated into the upper. Then after I've cleaned this forearm with just running some patches through it and getting the excess dirt on there, then I'm ready to actually take and just slide the forearm back on. And most of the time the Picatinny rail is actually going to sit next to the upper receiver. This one has slots in it, so it gets in the correct position. Sometimes with other forearms, the Picatinny rail just needs to be aligned a little bit. And once you do that, just tighten these up. They don't have to be, farmer tight, but just tighten them so that, they're good and snug, because these guns, they see a lot of action and everything, and you want to make sure that the forearm is always in place. So once I've got it tight like this, then this has some set screws, and actually tighten these little set screws up. And this is just an added feature to keep the forearm in place. Now with the silencers, typically the main things that I'll do with the silencers as far as cleaning them at this stage is on the ones that we have that I can break down, I don't necessarily break them down. I just take a wire brush with my solvent and clean the threads, make sure the threads are nice and clean. Take a patch, put some solvent on the patch, and you're going to see that typically these silencers are going to be very dirty. They're going to have a lot of carbon buildup. This wire brush that is also handy to have around, just stick it in there and get some of the excess carbon that's built up in the initial blast chamber here. And it doesn't take much to get this carbon loose. At least in this stage we see that yes, there's quite a bit of carbon buildup, but this is one of the silencers that I've taken apart recently and cleaned, so it wasn't too bad. After I've done that, then I'll take gun oil and put some on the wire brush and the patch, and just coat the inside of this blast chamber and the inside of the threads, and just provide minimal maintenance on these. For the most part, they're pretty sturdy and don't need a whole lot of cleaning from what we're seeing. Wipe off any excess oil, and then before I actually seat the suppressor on the barrel, I'll take some choke lube and put choke lube on the threads and take this suppressor, screw it on here, and take my choke wrench and just make sure it's snug, which hand tight with a little snug. So the upper on this gun is clean and should last us for several more rounds. The bolt slides real easily now. Everything looks really good. So pleased with how the gun is turning out so far. What we've done with the lower is something that we see that I don't disassemble any of the trigger assembly, the safety. I don't disassemble any of this mechanism here. In fact, what I typically do is take this Hops foaming bore cleaner, spray it in here, and just let it do its action. And then I'll actually take one of my soft bristle toothbrush and clean anything that I can reach here, where the hammer is, anything where the magazine well is. I just take and clean and get all the loose carbon kind of broken down. The next thing I'll do is take the buffer tube and the buffer spring out. This is one thing that in the past I really didn't worry about doing anything with it, but I found that we have some gritty actions, and so by just pushing down on the little retention pin here that's spring loaded, I can actually pull the buffer spring and the buffer out. And as you can see, just based on my hands and everything, it's got a lot of gunk and build up and everything. So I'll take a rag and wipe all the excess grit and dirt off the spring. This rag actually is coated in oil, so in addition to getting off the excess dirt and anything like that, it's actually providing some lubrication for that. I'll then take one of these large 12 gauge shotgun brushes and put some solvent on it. And put that on the patch on the brush and actually run it up into the buffer tube. And in the past, I really didn't worry about cleaning the buffer tube, but I found that even after 15, 20 times out in the field, you're going to get some grit, carbon buildup in the buffer tube. Overall, the AR platform is relatively dirty, so any of these little extra things to help with the mechanical functioning of the gun is just a big, big help. So after I've allowed the foaming bore cleaner to work, I'll actually take this outside, take my air compressor, and clean off any of the excess bore cleaner that is down in the grooves. So after that, I'll take a rag and wipe down the exterior of the lower. I'll wipe off the mag wells, wipe off anything, get excess particles out of there. Then it's time to reassemble. This is the little pin that holds the buffer tube, the buffer weight, and buffer spring in place in the buffer tube. So just most of the time you're able to just slide it in. Sometimes it goes in. If not, you can just push on this retention pin and push it back in. So basically, after the lower has been cleaned and you're pleased with how things are turned out, the only thing left to do is reattach the upper and lower together. So typically I'll put the front pin in first. Then once it's closed, and sometimes when this doesn't close properly, either two things have happened. Either this bolt assembly, bolt carrier group is not fully pushed up, or this other pin it needs to be pulled out, the back pin. And once you do that, then the gun is fully charged. Whenever we do a full cleaning, we've taken the silencer off the weapon, and we've seen through empirical data that the point of impact usually changes about 2 inches or so. And so after we've reassembled the gun, I'll put a marker on the back of this gun saying that we need to shoot this gun. So this gun will not go into the field until Jason has actually sighted the gun back in. So we'll accumulate 2 or 3 of these guns at any given time, and then we'll spend some range time out there making sure that the guns are sighted in properly before they go out with the hunters.
Well, as you guys can see, it's quite a chore to get these guns cleaned up and ready for the field. There's a lot that goes into being a hunting guide that people don't realize, and we sure appreciate Bill taking care of all this stuff for us. We couldn't do what we do without our guns being operational and being in good shape. I know just from having a professional experience, the guns have got to work.
Oh yes,
you know? So
that's big.
If you go on a hunt and the gun doesn't work, it's not so good. So sure appreciate you. Thanks for running us through this. I know some people will gain a lot of knowledge from just being able to maintain their own equipment now. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for some more action. And if you have any interest in coming out on an awesome hunt, visit TeamSwampStompLLC.com.